two, one. Welcome, Ron. Pleasure to have you on a podcast. For people
Thank
who
you for
do
having
not,
me.
yeah, pleasure. For people who do not know who Ron is, for our viewers, he's a wealth specialist, an author, international speaker, business consultant, thought leadership advisor, founder of the Successful Male, managing director of Maple Tree Wealth Management. So, welcome, Ron. You have achieved so much in so little time. We want to know from where it began. So, please tell our viewers from where
Yeah,
did you
certainly.
begin?
Yeah, look, I was actually an underachiever for the first 20 years of my life. So, the achievement started when I became very clear on what I wanted to do in life. So what I find is that when we are not inspired and when we're doing work that is not in line with our purpose, when it's not in line with our passion, when it's not in line with our values, it's not in line with our strengths, and it's not in line with our zone of genius,
Mm-hmm.
you will find that all of us are underachievers.
Yep.
But once we find work that is aligned with our purpose, passion, values, strengths, our mission, and it's aligned with our zone of genius, we all become super achievers,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So, whilst I've always had a desire to make something out of myself, the interesting part is that for the first 20 years, even up until I'll probably say the first 25 years, when I did not have the clarity, I did not achieve much. I cannot claim that I'm smart. I cannot claim that I'm intelligent. I can't claim any of those things because if I was, then I should have been successful throughout. But that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
Uh, but I do feel that that clarity was a big, big catalyst for me to become very focused naturally, with that very disciplined naturally, and very consistent naturally. Because when in the beginning, when you don't know who you are, you have to push yourself.
Exactly.
When you know who you are, you're pulled by the vision, right? And when you're pulled by it, you don't need to force yourself. You don't need to apply willpower. You don't need to, so much of this stuff. I mean, you still need to be disciplined, but setting those disciplines and following through becomes easier to follow through because you're doing something that is very much in line with who you are.
Great. So, Ron, here there's one more question which brewed in my mind. So, where did you get this thought of like starting up? Because I think you were a radio host in 97.7 FM, and then, as you said, you did not know in the first 25 years that you want what you wanted to do. So, my question here is, what made you do what you're doing now?
Yeah, so the first 20 years, I did not know who I was. I had no idea what my purpose was, what my passion was. I could not tell you what my values were, like most people, right? Because if you look at our traditional education system, what does it teach you? It teaches you what to think, and it teaches you how to make a living.
Exactly.
It doesn't teach you how to think, and it doesn't teach you how to make a life,
Yep.
right? So like most people at 20, I was completely confused. I was told to follow a system, go and get a good education, then go and get a job, and then work for the rest of your life, and then hopefully, you have a house and a car, and maybe the occasional holiday to Disneyland. And then I thought to myself, but I don't see a lot of people that have been able to achieve success in terms of being able to design the life that they want. I've not seen people who have got the lifestyle that they want, and I don't see people who have the freedom that they want following that system. So why am I following that system?
Exactly.
But because there was no alternative, and back then nobody was talking about this sort of stuff, I thought I'll follow the system. So I thought maybe what's going to make me happy is a very good corporate job and good money. So I followed that system for a while. And right up until I was 30, I followed that system. So I got into the workforce and I got into the corporate world. And then I thought, let me get a good job, let me get a good title, and then let me make good money. And once I have a good salary, I'll buy a good house. And then everyone's going to think I'm successful. And so I got all of that. I got the good job, I got the good title, I got the good salary, I got the good house, I got the good car. And I wasn't happy. Right? I felt there was something wrong. And then first I thought maybe I'm being ungrateful. Like, what, if I have everything, why should I be feeling this way? But I felt that no matter what I did not feel, I felt like something was missing. And so I started to ask myself these questions I had never asked myself. So first I did was I got a coach, a mentor of mine, and he said to me, so tell me, who are you? And I said, I'm a private banker. And he said, no, no, no. I'm not asking what you do. I'm saying, who are you? And I said, well, my name's Ron. And he said, no, no, I'm not asking you your name. I'm saying, who are you? And I thought to myself, what is this guy saying? And he said, Ron, you're not your name. You're not your occupation. You're not your religion. You're not your culture. You're none of those things. Who you are is not described by any of those things, because here's the question: did you pick your name? I said no.
No.
He said, did you pick your nationality? I said no. He said, did you pick your culture? No. He said, did you pick your occupation? Or even that was influenced by media and cultural conditioning. And at that point I realized that here I was at the age of 29 having no idea who I was as a person.
So true.
That everything that I had based my identity around was something that I had inherited from other people, right?
Exactly.
And why was I following that system? Because I was told that if you follow that system, you're going to become successful. But not once did I stop and ask myself, what will make me feel successful? Right? So like most people, I was following a system blindly. And I thought, wow, I have done all the right things. And here I am feeling unsuccessful. Even though everybody else thinks I'm successful, I feel unsuccessful.
Exactly.
And so I had to literally restart my whole life, and I had to relearn. First, I had to unlearn everything that I had learned, and then I had to relearn. And one of the things I always say is that the hardest journey I ever made in my whole life was to go from my mind back into my heart.
So
Very
true.
hard journey to make, right?
Yep.
And because I didn't know who I was. So I said, I'm not going to get the answers here, because all that's in here is other people's voices and opinions and other people's beliefs. My whole mind is full of what everyone else has told me. But the answers are not in here. The answers are in my heart. But I don't know who I am. So I've never asked, I've never connected with my heart. So what am I going to do now? And so the process and the journey started, and instead of looking for answers, I started asking myself questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What do I want? How do I want to maximize my potential? What do I want to be known for? And what do I want my legacy to be?
Exactly. So, Ron, here I can totally concur with what you felt that time, because now I am 23, and even at my home, people do not ask what the idea is. They're telling, like they say, why start up now? You're just so young. You even do not have the backup, the cash to go with it. So why do it now? So that is what happens. People do not ask you, like people do not ask you what the idea is. People ask you why. So this is an underlying problem, which brings us to the next question. Like, you took this important decision in order to discover yourself. So how can you help people and professionals listening to us from the corporate world to magnify their influence, success, and wealth? So what is your one message to the normal 9 to 5 guy listening to us now?
Well, I think the fact is that right now everybody's expecting me to give them 3 tips on how they can become successful, right? But it doesn't work that way. The first thing is, how do you think? Your mindset is the number one contributor to your success or failure. So how do you think? Do you get up in the morning and think, I have to go to work and how I can get a promotion, how I can get a job? Well, if that's how you think, you're bound to end up like everyone else.
Everyone. One among the
So you
thousands.
have to start by asking yourself the more important questions, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not about the startup, it's not about the entrepreneurship. I mean, in the last 5 years, these have become buzzwords.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about it, right? Because it's trendy to talk about it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's trendy because you see people on social media, so you go, well, you know what, I'll become another startup, but hang on a sec, before you do that, why do you want to start a business? Because again, we're just making the same mistake in a different area. First we followed the jobs and the corporations, now we're following the entrepreneurship part because everyone else is doing it. It's the same damn thing. We are
Exactly.
doing the same bloody mistake, but now instead of moving in one direction, we're moving into another direction.
Wow.
So, so it's not about that. I mean, entrepreneurship simply at the end of the day is an extension of your vision. But what if you don't know your vision? Again, you're doing it for the wrong reason. So
Wrong
before you were
reasons.
running jobs for money, now you're running after entrepreneurship for money. Either way, it's that you're playing the same game. And that game always ends up in mediocrity and failure.
That is what I thought in the beginning. That is exactly, like, thanks for bringing up this point. There must be a vision if you want to do it for publicity, if you want to do it for media, if you want to do it for other people, like the status in the society, then you'll end up failing up. Like, there is no, if there is no vision, if there is no goal what you're doing. For example, Corporates is on a mission to bring about a qualitative change in the corporate world. So if there is no such vision, then every startup is bound to fail, even if you have like 1 crore in startup capital. So Ron, that brings me to the next question. The problem with the corporate world is that each deadline gives a lot of stress to an employee. Sometimes they do not go home in order to complete it; they stay at office. So has there been any situation in your life, like before you were 30, when you were working in the corporate world? Was there any situation that a deadline really troubled you a lot? And then was there any tips you can give our people watching this podcast so that they can handle those deadlines?
Yeah, so stress can come from a number of reasons. You can feel stressed because you're working in a job that is not aligned with your values and strengths, but it can also come from following deadlines, as you said. So one of the things is we all only have 24 hours in a day, right? It's no different from anybody.
Right.
So whilst we can be in different countries, we can have different opportunities, but time is the equalizer in every situation. Nobody has more than 24 hours in a day. So we have to ask ourselves, why is it that some people will build empires and run countries and run industries in those 24 hours, and then some people can't even run their own financial situation and they can't run their own life?
Yes.
So it's got nothing to do with anything outside of it. It's about how we manage our time, because at the end of the day, how you manage your time is the most important thing. And so one of the things that I learned was a productivity model by a former president of the United States. It's called the Eisenhower model of productivity. And what it does is it says basically every person has a lot of things to do every day. But the first thing you've got to do is, out of everything that you have to do, what is the thing? You must divide it into four components.
Okay.
Everything that is important and urgent. Okay,
Okay.
so anything that will create most value for yourself and your company and is urgent must be done right now. Do not defer and do it straight away.
Yep.
The second type of work that you have is work that is important but not urgent.
Okay.
If it's important but not urgent, you plan for it
Yes, it can be done at a later stage.
at a later stage, but you put a plan, you schedule it. If it doesn't get scheduled, it will not get done.
Yeah, but it's
Okay?
important. Yes.
The third type of work is what's urgent but not important. Okay?
Yep.
That kind of work, if you do enough of the important work, it's only a matter of time that you can get somebody else to do the urgent work. So in the beginning, you're going to have to do it, which just means you can't work 8 to 9 hours. If you're trying to progress today in your career, 8 to 9 hours is not enough. So in the beginning, maybe for the first 12 months, you may become so exceptionally skilled that you can spend more and more time on working at the tasks that are considered important for your position as well as for your company, which will create the most revenue for your company. And as you start to create more revenue for your company, you're in negotiating power, and you can say to the employer, look, I've been making all of this revenue. You've been asking us to make this much revenue, but I've made 150%. I would like for you to provide me with support with all the stuff that's urgent. And if you do that, I will do more of the what's important.
Awesome.
But you have to have negotiating power. You can't just go to your employer and negotiate with them to give you more support, resources, or assistance until you have demonstrated that first. So maybe for the first year, you have to make some sacrifices. Instead of working 8 hours a day, you might have to work 11 or 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
Big deal. It's still easier than working in entrepreneurship, let me tell you that.
Yeah. And
Okay?
yeah, let
Yeah.
me.
And then
I'll
the
get
fourth
this. I'll
quadrant is
get this.
there is
So this is something
yeah.
which is not urgent and not important, is it?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
And that stuff typically you don't want to do at all. Now, if you're in the corporate world, it depends. If you're in entrepreneurship, yeah, you can delegate. You don't do it at all. If you're in corporate world, you may still have to do it, but you want to minimize your time. So I always say to people, how your employer treats you and how much money they pay you is dependent on you. A lot of people think that it's out of their control. No, it's not. If you get highly valued skills and you focus on what will create the most value for your employer and for yourself, then you are in a position to negotiate with your employer and say, look, I don't want to do this stuff. I'm not good at this, but I'm very good at this. And what does every employee want to do at the end of the day? They want to make more money.
Exactly.
And there are some skills that are not taught at school and not taught at universities, and you need to learn, you need to identify what those skills are, and you need to spend a good few years learning and mastering those skills so you can get that negotiating power with your employer.
Awesome. Wow. These 4 tips even I'll remember, and if you don't mind, I'll tell this in my speeches at college. So I was invited to a college this Sunday, so I'll go there, and if you don't mind, I'll tell the same thing to them. Uh,
That's fine.
these four tips will never leave me. Talking about the money and how to generate more money for your employer. So my this brings me to my four question. Corporate professionals in the sale background often find it hard to convince people to spend money. So do you have any tips for them on how to influence people and get them invest in you?
Well, the first thing is always, price is always an objection in the absence of value. Okay? And value is created where there's problems. Simple as that. Okay? So here is the thing. Before you try and convince somebody to give you money, which is the wrong way to go about it, you have an obligation to understand their biggest problem. And you have an obligation to understand what their desired solution is. So if you understand your prospect's biggest issue and you understand their desired destination, and you can demonstrate to them that you and the services or the product that you offer bridges that gap between where they are and where they want to be, you then end up creating value. The more value that you create through your conversation and by demonstrating to the client that your offer and your solution is the way they're going to go from their current situation to the desired situation, the more value you create, the less price is going to be an objection. Now here's the other thing as well. If you're solving simple problems, you're going to get paid small money. If you're solving complicated problems, you'll get more money. If you solve complex problems, you'll get the most money. Okay? Do not expect to solve simple problems and make big money. It's not going to happen, because the fact is that you have not developed your capability to be able to solve your client's problem. So if you're saying, well, I want to convince people to give me money, well, why should they give you money? If you can't even solve a complex problem, why should they, right? I'm not going to give you money. And so for me, one of the ways that I take the price objection out is I understand my client's biggest problems, and then I come up with research-based solutions that will alleviate the biggest problems in the fastest way and the most efficient and painless way possible, so that price is no longer an objection.
Yeah. So Ron, here this question is not in the script, but out of curiosity, what if there are multiple people offering the same solution to the same problem, and the client is now confused? Like, how do you influence that situation? How do you grab the deal there?
So there's a number of things. The first thing is that if you can connect with your client better than anyone else, right? So most salespeople, consultants will go in with a sales pitch. This is what we do. This is my company. This is who I am. This is how many years experience I have. This is my education. It's all about me, and us. A great consultant doesn't spend any time talking about themselves or their company. They first say, Mr. Client, may I understand a little bit more about your situation? Tell me a little about your problem. I want to understand the impact of that problem, and I want to understand the cause of that problem. So let me give you an example. Let's just say you are sick. You have a shoulder injury, and you've got a shoulder that's hurting, and so you go to a doctor. So you have two doctors. The first doctor says, oh, your shoulder's hurting? Here is a couple of pills. Go and take these pills and go and get some rest, and you'll be fine. That's the first doctor. Second doctor says, oh, your shoulder's hurting. Which shoulder is it? And you said, this shoulder. Okay. And he grabs your arm and he moves it in certain directions, and he says, does it hurt now or does it hurt now? And you say, well, it hurts more when you put it up. And then he said, okay, tell me, what work do you do? Are you working with your hands, or are you sitting behind the computer? Or you say, yeah, I've been sitting behind the computer. Have you been traveling much? Yeah, I've been traveling a lot. Do you sleep well? What's your diet like? Are you exercising? When did the shoulder pain start? What were the first symptoms? And so on and so forth. And he carries out a very thorough diagnosis. And then he says, look, you need medication, but the other thing that you need is you need to avoid traveling too much, and you need to have less stress at home. And so he gives you not just a quick symptom-based solution. He has taken the time to connect with you by really caring about the problem. And then he has taken the time to give you a complete solution. Who are you more likely to make your family doctor, the first one or the second one?
The second one. I would never go to any other person, because I have this connect with it.
And here's the reason. Because people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So the care factor is not so much that you have to care about the person, but you have to care about their problem. You have to care about taking away that problem. You have to care about adding value. And if you care about their problem, you care about adding value, and you care about taking their problem away, you will win the business and price will be less of an objection.
Wow, that that is the best thing I've heard in the past 1 month. Thank you, Ron, for that. And
That's my pleasure.
lastly, Ron, this brings me to my last question. Any tips for those IT and corporate professionals who are interested in starting up and whatever are watching these videos, can you give them some pointers, some to dos and some things not to do, which can help them in the long run?
Yeah. So I'll give you 3 tips. Okay. Number 1, stop asking for tips. Tips will never make you successful. Second of all, spend some time understanding the principles of entrepreneurship and business. Okay? So don't understand the tips, the tactics, and the strategies. That will never make you successful. Understand the principles because the principles are irrefutable. Okay, so there are certain principles of business, there are certain principles that govern life, there are certain principles that govern influence, there are certain principles that govern money. And if you understand the principles, you will always be able to find your way when you get lost. If you don't have the principles, you're going to get confused and lost because there is more and more noise out there in the world. And my third tip is this: do not substitute experience for knowledge. Knowledge for experience. You must get experience. You cannot learn things by watching YouTube videos and by reading books, right? And by sharing memes and motivational stuff. That's not how you learn. You can do that if you also have practical experience, because it's very easy to talk, but it's the embodiment of the experience where you really learn, because it's only through experience. For example, let's just say you said to me, Ron, can you give me 3 tips how to ride a bicycle? I've never ridden a bicycle before.
Yep.
No matter how many tips I give you, when you get on that bicycle for the first time, you are going to fall, no matter how many tips I give you. And you will only learn how to ride a bicycle by jumping on that bicycle. In fact, what's going to happen is the moment you jump on that bicycle, all the tips that I have given you, you're going to forget. It's going to go out the window because the experience is so different. And so one of the problems that I'm finding now is that everybody tries to learn intellectually.
Yeah.
You cannot learn everything intellectually. Experience is the way you learn. You have to do it, and you have to make mistakes. So here is how we learn. How do you make good decisions? Good decisions come from experience. But where does experience come from? Bad decisions.
Yeah.
You see the irony of that?
Yeah.
So if you want to avoid making bad decisions, you will never get the experience which allows you to make the good decisions. And that's the paradox of life, that to make good decisions, you need the experience, and to get the experience, you must make bad decisions. So you have to start by being open to learning, making mistakes, and you have to be okay about embarrassing yourself. You have to be okay about failing. You have to be okay about people ridiculing you and your parents saying, I told you you shouldn't have done it, your friends saying you shouldn't have done it. You have to be okay with that for a while, because as you make bad decisions, you get the experience, which then allows you to make the good decisions.
Wow. I am totally awestruck. Here, so folks, whoever have listened to this podcast, one takeaway is no matter if you have the idea, it doesn't matter if you have the funding. All that matters is, do you have the principles to go about with? All that matters is, do you have the experience with you, backing you up? And then you can always have people like Ron, people like all those influencers out there on LinkedIn and on other social platforms that you can look up to and can get in contact with. So, Ron, that brings me to the end of the podcast. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Wow, this was one of the best 30 minutes I've had so far in the past 1 year. So, thank you, Ron.
No, thank you, and you're doing a wonderful job at 23. I mean, you're miles ahead of most people at your age. And if you can just follow that one thing that I said to you, stop asking for tips and stop following tips. Tips will never make you successful.
Yeah.
Because the mindset, think about the mindset that seeks tips. The mindset that seeks tips is a short-term mindset.